Uh,
عليكم
Good
السلام ورحمة الله.
afternoon, everyone, and welcome to this exciting workshop on teaching with AI from cheating to creative assignments by Dr. Jose Bowen. Thank you for joining us today. This workshop comes after the keynote talk delivered by Jose on Monday this week. Jose is a renowned educator, author, and speaker with decades of experience in higher education. He is widely recognized for his engaging talks and practical insights on innovation in teaching and learning. He is the author and co-author of several influential books, including Teaching Naked and Teaching with AI, which have shaped how educators approach pedagogy and the digital age. His work continues to inspire faculty and institutions worldwide to rethink education in ways that are student-centered, evidence-based, and future-ready. So without any further ado, I would just hand it over to Jose. So the floor is yours.
Thank you. And so we have 2 hours together today. Uh, I will try not to go too fast. We do have lots to cover, and I want to give you a chance to try some things. So I start here. I put in the chat. This is the link to my models page at my website. And so you'll see at the top here, there are the series of buttons. This AI button, you don't have the very top button, that's my editor button, but when most of what we're going to do today is underneath that AI toggle. So you see there are the models. We'll look at the tools in a minute. We'll look at prompting, and I'll try to put those in the chat. So models. So you've all heard of the big three, ChatGPT, Gemini, and Claude. Copilot is just a Microsoft branded version of ChatGPT, now offering ChatGPT 5 there as well. I have a little chart here about the big three. So they are the big three, despite the fact that Grok is just as good a model, but they were there first. So all of them have a variety of models, slow, fast, medium. And so if you click on ChatGPT, Gemini, and Claude, it'll take you to those pages and it'll open up tabs in your browser. So open up a new window in your browser, Chrome, Safari, whatever, and go ahead and click on this and you'll see, so there I can get to ChatGPT, and here I have Google or Gemini, because I want you to compare some models. So those are the big three, but there's also other models. I mentioned Grok. So it's important to understand that the models do slightly different things. So if you want the news, at least what Western America news, right? ChatGPT and Gemini are connected to the Associated Press. So they can give you a live, so I can say, what's the news in the last 20 minutes? So again, think about this. If I say, what happened in the last 20 minutes in the world? ChatGPT will rely on Reuters or Associated Press and get their news. Grok will go to X, and it will use X as its source. Now, that's not necessarily as good if you want to know what is the news, right? But if you want to know, how did students react to my class? What did students think about my final, right? It's probably not in the New York Times, so Grok might be a better source for finding out that. You can also go to Perplexity and do that. So if I go to Perplexity and do a new chat, right? I have this little search button, right? So you have to be aware that there's often right, these little buttons, and they're different on every model. But if I'm here, right, so Perplexity gives me the choice, right? I can search the web, I can search only academic sources, I can search social media, or I can search financial sources. I think they'll add medical next, right? So that gives me a little bit of refinement about, oh, I want to know what students are thinking about my course. They're not going to be academic articles about that. So the models have different things. The buttons are in different places. I'm sorry. If you're a mathematician, you should try Wolfram Alpha. Although, as you probably have heard, the ChatGPT and Gemini have both now won gold at the Olympiad, the Math Olympiad. They're also Chinese models and they're open source models. So the nice thing about an open source, they're really open weight models. They don't give you how they train them, but they tell you what the code for what the weights are, which allows you to download them and use them. These are versions that you can use on their website, but if you go to Hugging Face or something else, you can then download them. Uh, so there's DeepSeek, which is I can't say it's the best anymore because the Chinese competition is very, very strong. Quen is very good. Uh, the Minimax models are good. Um, Meta is the one from Meta. And what's interesting about Meta, as I click on it here, is that it doesn't require a login, right? It knows you see the login over here on the right, but I don't need to do it. I can just ask it a question. So if you're nervous about AI or your students don't want to write login, Meta is a good option. Note though, if I don't log in, who owns my chat? Of course they do because I haven't logged in, so I haven't gone to the privacy controls. So if you want privacy, right, ChatGPT, Gemini, et cetera, all give you the option to go into your settings, right? So I'll go back to ChatGPT. I can then go to my settings, and then I can, right, say don't use my data. I can tell it what I want to do with security. I can click on things, right? I have various options. So I don't have that if I'm not logged in. So my suggestion is that you log in, um, and uh, so and then you can adjust your privacy. So
Ex-
I don't think there's a
Excuse
single
me,
model.
Professor Jose.
Yeah, I see
Professor
the
Jose,
question.
how to log in? You are going a little bit fast. How to log into any of these? Are
Ah,
you going from Google or?
so for most of them, the fastest way is to use your Google sign in. Thank you for the question. You can usually it just wants an email. It wants to verify that you're a human, not another bot. Um, but Google will work for many of these. So you don't need all of them right now, but I would log into two or three. The question about which model is best for engineering is tricky. For coding, right? Claude, Gemini, and ChatGPT are in this race for who's the best coder, but they often have specialized models for that. Um, but I would start with two of the three of those. Um, but there are also regional models, right? So Latimer, for example, is a fine-tuned model trained only on black and brown Western sources. Um, there are Chinese models. Mistral Saba says it speaks all of the Arabic dialects and all the Indian languages. Um, it's only available as an API, the last I checked, but it's very smart and very good. Jais, if I've said it right, is another Arabic model, Fanar, right? So there are models that both speak Arabic, but also, so here is, and I can, let's see if I have it in English. I think, let's see, where's the button? There's got to be a button here I may have told it I want to speak English. Um, yes, there it is. Oh, okay. So it's asking me to log in again. So here I've had to give it I've had to create a password and log in. Um, right. So this is a model that I might try. I will, it's right. And you can use it in English or Arabic. So there are a number of different, oh, there's the globe. Thank you for somebody. So there it is. Great. And yeah, I can change language here, right? So, and that allows me to do that. Um, all right. So what I would do is, and if you're looking at my screen, you can see that I have a couple of different models open. And so that's what I would do. I would log into two or three um, different models. Okay, so this is so because I'm on my computer and I'm logged in, right? So if you're already a Google person, if you have a Google login, and I go to let me go to a new model. Let me see if I can do this. Thank you for that. So if I go to let's try GigaChat, which is a Russian model. Oh no, that's not one that I want because I have to do that through. Someone is asking. Let's see. Okay, so this is Daobao in China. And I'm, yeah, I'm not logged in. Okay, so yeah, so I have to. I don't speak Chinese, so I've probably done something. So it's asking me for a phone number, and I have to change my and do that. So it doesn't. So Daobao doesn't do. Uh, Let me think of another one that I'm not logged into all the time. So there we go. So this is Fanar, which I've also got on my website, but I'll put here. And does it require a login? No, it doesn't. Okay, so that was easy. So some of them will require a login. Again, your Google login will work off on a phone number or so again, but find a couple of models. Again, if you don't want to log in, you can use Fanar and Meta. But what I'm going to suggest that you do then is now I'm going to go to my prompting page. So I'm going to go back up here. And I'm now going to go to basic prompting. So basic prompting. And I am going to copy, and I've got some little tips there, but under getting started, I'm going to put this in the chat. So you can pick any one of these that you like. But what I would do is to take a prompt like this. So I put the prompt in the chat. So I want you to take that prompt and I want you to put it into an AI that you've opened. But I want you to customize it. Right? So in other words, I've put, college students, topic X, class Y, right? So you want to say where you're teaching, right? You want the name of the university, the name of the class you're teaching, and a specific topic, maybe something about your students, their majors, their non-majors, their engineering students, what they want to do, et cetera. The more information, the better. Notice the word innovative. If I take the word innovative out, my ideas will be less innovative because it's a language model. So you are essentially coding in English. And of course, if you want to, translate this and do this in Arabic in an Arabic model, that's fine too. But I've tried to make it easy for you. But what I would do is actually, type this in and customize it. But then try the same exact prompt in a couple of different models. And I'm going to do a demo. So let me ask, are there any questions logging in? Anything else that I need to? So there are a range of models that you should be looking at. There is the prompt from the basic prompting page. So I put that prompt into Claude and Grok because I teach music history, not engineering, I know. But what I did is I wanted to see how do Claude and Grok think differently. Right, so Claude responds that, classical music is like social media platforms. Right, that's interesting. I hadn't thought of that. It also thought, you could introduce the music by talking about composer dating profiles. I hadn't thought of that. So Claude is a little more social in how it thinks. Grok is a little more technical. So it says, medieval music is a little bit like DJ mixes. It's layered, right? That's a more technical music theory idea. So I got different sorts of answers. But then I went to Latimer, right? Which is trained on African American sources. And so it says, highlight how Beethoven is like Beyonce or Kendrick Lamar, right? It references different cultural things. And then here it says, discuss how Arabic choral music and Sufi singing had a profound influence on early Western choral music. So its references are different. So different models will respond differently. And as was asked, engineering, some of them are a little bit better at math. There are going to be some specialized tools that I'll get to in a minute. But notice one more thing, that I went back to Claude and I said, I didn't tell Claude I wanted to teach black students like Latimer, right, just assumed. So if I said, I want to teach Arabic students, or I'm teaching in Saudi Arabia, or I want to teach students who are like this. So notice that Claude then responds differently when I tell it a little bit more about the cultural background of my students. So that's what I'd like you to try. There are some more prompts on the screen. And I'd like you to try the same prompt in a couple of different models and see what happens. Oh, look, there's so I and I did. Fanar does require allows me to log in either with Google or with Apple. So it does. Oh, that was the login. I didn't have to do that. Okay. Questions. Great. I'm just a couple of minutes. Any questions? So I got a question in chat. Is it okay to only work with ChatGPT 5? So ChatGPT 5 is a good model, and it does certain things, but you want to be aware of its biases. And so I would try at least a couple other models to see how they're different. In fact, an assignment we'll come to later is that I often will have students ask several different models about a controversial topic and then analyze how the answers are different, how they draw on different evidence, and so we'll do that a little bit later. But right, you can if you I ask it a controversy, right? Um, should Ukraine cede land to Russia to end the war? Right? If you ask 4 different models that, you'll get 4 different answers, and then the assignment for students is how do those answers reflect the bias of the companies that built the models? Right? How would you characterize the politics of the companies? Um, well, so that's an interesting question about whether or not science and programming tasks, they may not show bias, but they do show different approaches, right? They are different brains. They are not, right? It's like if I had the option of talking to Einstein or Bohr, right? They're both smart people, but they think a little differently. And so, right, you just want to have some understanding of how those differences might manifest themselves in your field. Oh, no, hang on. I meant that for Fanar. Let me go back. I taped it in the wrong box. There we go. Okay. So I had to actually tell Fanar that the students I wanted, even because I'm using it in English. Aha, wonderful. All right, so I'm right. So this is interesting. So I went to Fanar, and I asked it the same question I asked everybody else, and I got kind of generic answers. They're not bad answers, right? Star Wars, interesting visual connections. But then when I actually said, okay, I'm teaching in Saudi Arabia, it changed its responses, right? So even though it's trained on Arabic sources, it was able to, it gave me, it assumed because I was speaking English, right? So they make assumptions. And so I had to then tell it. So that was interesting. Okay. Other questions? So yeah, so this question about ChatGPT, yeah, so that's a great example. If I ask it for examples or to do something, and but there are really two things here. Um, One is that, right, you need to use different models to see how they respond, right? ChatGPT, for example, has just introduced personalities. There's a robot, there's more and more emotional. Grok has a spicy mode, which you probably don't want to use, et cetera. And Grok, right, is a little bit politically, right? And so, will that make a difference for coding? I don't think so, but I don't know. So this is the first thing that I would do. So I would get some familiarity with how the models think. And again, as I said, it's a great exercise for students to do. And then you'll get more variation if you ask it something political or you ask it a controversy. Right. So there are a number of ethical frameworks, and if you Google, AI framework for ethical AI use, there's actually one called Ethical in California. But I think that right, you still need to have some hands-on experience. So how do I minimize errors or hallucinations? Well, so ChatGPT 5 hallucinates much less. There are two ways to do this. So one is I can just ask it to verify its responses. Notice that what I just had you do, when I asked you for ways to introduce, right, how do I improve my teaching by giving me examples that are going to help me, right? It might hallucinate, but that's okay because I want it to make up stuff. But if I'm looking for science or something else, I double check, triple check your sources. And in fact, I will show you. So when I use ChatGPT, so I have a system prompt. So if I go to my, where do they put it? Yes. Okay. So under ChatGPT, right? There's a system prompt, and so you're looking at my screen, and so it has the personalities, et cetera. I give it, right. So I tell it what I do, right. But then I say it says what traits should ChatGPT have. So you can see what I've written here. Explain concepts to me at the level of a college professor, unless I suggest another audience. Be aggressive in servicing my assumptions. Always think in a global context. I'm very concerned with accuracy. Check all of your sources. Show citations, links, and references. Double check everything. I could say triple check, right? Because it doesn't get tired, right? When I put a link in the chat, always try to read it, evaluate all of your right? You see, so I've written all of the things I want to do. And so the way that I do that is by, right, like I'm talking to an intern. Right, so I've given it a not a personality, but I've given it a set of additional instructions to be hyper vigilant about accuracy. Right. So the question then about is ChatGPT isn't good enough. So have you used ChatGPT 5, right? Or are you using a paid model? Or if you're using a free model, then the last 5 days ChatGPT got 1,000 times better. If you were using the free model. So try it again. Otherwise, right, the paid models are definitely better in general. But at the moment, right, there's this race to give people stuff for free. Okay, so before I answer too many more questions, let me show you a couple other things, right? So you can find the customization for ChatGPT there. Most of them have that. Claude has this, Gemini has this. So I would make sure you spent at least a few hours with each of the big three, because they work a little different, they think differently. But again, I would also try, a cultural model, something else, depending on how this works. We don't have time to do hours and hours today, but I wanted to get you started and know where you have all of those resources. Notice also though the kind of prompts that I gave it, right? If you're looking just for literature search, I'm going to give you different kinds of tools. Right? And so the prompt that I used, somebody asked me for the prompt that I gave ChatGPT. So that is on my website under system prompts, because that is a system prompt, right? And it says, I want you to respond the same way all the time. So I will put that in the chat here. It's under AI on my website, but system prompts. So here is the link to the prompt that I use. And again, all of the models do it, they just do it in different places. So notice the prompts that are on the screen, right? So these are things where hallucinations are not going to be as much of a problem. So it does depend on your discipline and what you're trying to do, right? So I would start. Right, don't start by having it write code or do the thing that you want it to do. Start by asking it to help you improve your teaching, right? How could I make this assignment better? Give me 10 ideas for this. How could I make my proposal better, right? Give it a writing task. Give it a task where you want 10 or 20 ideas and you don't need all of them to be perfectly correct. You want it to be creative. That's a better way to get started, right? Create a syllabus for me. But then, as I may have mentioned, right, part of what you have to do is make it better. So one of the things that I would do, so for example, ask your favorite model to create a syllabus for you for your course for this fall, right? So say I'm teaching, and again, I don't know if all of them will do it in Arabic, but Fanar will, obviously. But ask it to create a syllabus for you. Give it the name of the course, etc., and say, create a syllabus for this course for this fall for students at this university, right? And then you can see how good a syllabus it is. But then try to make it better. So notice that if you don't tell it it's an expert, you don't, right? So if I ask it, make me a syllabus, blah, blah, blah. But then I say, okay, now I want you to redo this syllabus, but you're an expert in petroleum engineering, in physics, in math, and you have 35 years of international experience and students love your teaching, and you're also an expert in pedagogy. Right? So if you add some context, right? My students are graduate students, they're undergraduates, they're Saudi students, right? I want you to make me a beloved professor and I'm an expert in student learning, right? When you add those things, you will notice that your response gets better. So in other words, it's not just the prompt, it's also that you have to tell it it's an expert. So again, you don't have to do that in all 4 models. It does work in every model, but if you go back and say respond as an expert, and you actually give it the expertise, you will be. It's really quite amazing how well that works. How much it changes the response. If you want to do it quickly without having to look at a whole syllabus, right? My standard test is write 150 words. About a subject that you're an expert in. So say, write 150 words about this process in my field, and then read the response. And then say, now respond to this, write 150 words about this thing, but now do it as an expert with 35 years of experience in the Nobel Prize. And it will be different. And so that's another trick that you have to give it, you have to tell it it's an expert. You have to tell it if you want to be innovative. I'll give you a minute to process that. Does that make sense? Questions about that? Right, even saying slow down, think more carefully. Right. In fact, a lot of people's favorite follow-up prompt is make it better. Right. So if I have it write code, or I have it do a syllabus, so, and for code especially, I have it write code to build me an app to do this, and then whatever it produces, say, make it better. Right? ChatGPT 5 especially responds to this. They all do, but ChatGPT 5 is very, okay, I can make it better. So I don't know if they respond based upon your location. It seems to me possible that they might. Your IP address. They're very sensitive to context. So if you tell it what your anything at all about your university, et cetera, it probably extrapolates from that. Any other? Okay, so do I need? I can give you more time, but again, you're then. if you want more time, I'll give you more time. If you want to do it later, and I will get to images. I will get to all of that. That's my trade-off. I want it right. Uh, so well, I will say this about images. So there are models that do images or video, but you can now do this native in all of the big three. So if you're in ChatGPT, or I find Gemini to be, I think, a little better, but it depends on what kind of image you want, right? ChatGPT has a button for images. And so you can just ask it to make an image for you. Good. All right. And so it does depend, right? If you want photorealistic images are different than if I want diagrams, right? I want you to make a concept map of this. I want you to make an infographic, and I'll give you a few more of those tools in a minute. So the point I'm hoping that you'll get from the first exercise is that prompting is a little weird, right? That the models are different, and you need a little bit of experience to the different models. But you also have to iterate, right? You have to say, oh, let's try to make that better, right? Don't accept the first answer. Say, oh, well, that's not really, if the answer is not as good as you wanted, then say better, right? Make it better, or be an expert, right? Or here's some context about my students. But notice that you also have to start with stuff that you know, because you can then judge the response. Right? That if you don't know what a certain theory is, and it gives you, it's like, oh, well, that might be right. It might be totally hallucinating. So you have to start with stuff that you know to get a sense of how often it hallucinates. But notice that small changes make a difference, right? So people have been asking me, which is the best model? Well, it depends, because you have to try exactly the same prompt, because it may be that I just didn't use the word innovative, right? And I can goose it to go one way or the other. It is the case that ChatGPT is right. Those models are all pretty versatile. I would start with ChatGPT, Claude, and Gemini, but be aware that lots of coders like Claude better, right? Lots of coders have been unhappy with GPT-5, because I'll get to this, but GPT-5 picks the model, and they liked 4, or they liked o3. So GPT-5 makes it easier if you're a low volume user, but if you need to be good users, and so you may want to be able to pick your model and do other kinds of things. And yes, so Sala, HeyGen is the model I'll give you for making an avatar of yourself. HeyGen is the model to use. And by the way, all of this is on my website under API tools, which I'm going to get to in a minute. So prompting. In general, the research now says that there's no effect on average of things like saying please, threatening it, offering chocolate. On the other hand, sometimes just offering chocolate makes a difference. That's weird, right? So I don't, so sometimes it's just offer it chocolate. I'll do something weird and see what happens. It's hard to know in advance what will happen. Chain of thought, COT, prompting used to be something that often made the answer better, right? I want you to think slowly, go step by step. It sometimes still works, but now the big models have it mostly built in, and I'll tell you why in a few minutes. So we talked about the 70% problem on Monday, right? That you're an expert, so you should start not with things that you don't know or want to learn. Start with where I want to accelerate things I already do, right? I could do my syllabus faster. I can have it do a draft of something, because you're an expert and you'll know if it's not good enough. So I talked about, right, it's asking better questions, evaluating answers. This is where I start for AI literacy. There's obviously more, but a lot of what we do. And so I would start telling students that skill is related to what we're doing. Okay, so I want you to try the next thing. So I mentioned this on Monday, right? Searching for ideas. So most of the models have a search button, right? Perplexity, you have to figure out what kind of search you want. Most of them, Gemini and ChatGPT, will automatically search the web. But you can now search for something like this, something similar, right? So for example, if I give it code, or an engineering project, or here is my design for this project. What might be missing? That's a right. So that's going to be an interesting thing. That's something that humans have a hard time doing. What might be missing? So, for example, if I want to know what are experts saying about this, what are the trends in my field? So try doing a search in one of the good models. Actually, any of the models. What are the trends in my field, in my research in the last 6 months? But I have to say, focus on academic articles, right? Right. How has thinking changed about this particular theorem in the last 20 years, 30 years, 6 months, whatever, right? You could do a contextual search. Or I could say, what are students saying about me? Have students gotten happier with me? And say, I've put perplexity there and I put a social search. Are students saying nicer things about me this semester than last semester, right? That's something you can't do with Google. And if you're really brave, so this is something that I did, I said, is there anything that I have posted in the last 10 years that's overly political that might have a negative impact if you were to hire me at your university? And so what it does when I do that is it now does a bunch of searches, right? So it'll actually show you. It searches for my name plus Biden, my name plus Trump, my name plus Gaza, my name plus Israel, my name plus Contra, right? It does a whole list of searches. It goes through social media. And so I'd like you to try one of these. You don't have to try that particular one. If you want more ideas for prompts, I have them I have them here on this page. This is my searching and reasoning page. Right. So there are some more types of things you could search for if you just want to copy and paste, right? So here's one of them, right? I want to prepare, and let me put it on the screen so you can or I'll copy and paste it. Here's another one. Right? Search for everything I need to know to prepare for an excellent job interview for a position A at University B, and prepare a briefing document with talking points. Right? That's something it's good at. So again, if you do this, and notice I had to say excellent job interview, right? I want it to be a good one, right? So if I go to, let's say I'm going to go to Gemini, I'm going to do this. So this is why a little bit of use with different models is useful, right? So here I am in Gemini. So notice that at the bottom of the page, there are buttons, right? So if I want to make an image, there's also this guided learning. And Canvas is if I want it to create a doc, like I want it to create a syllabus, and I don't want it to do it in chat. So I would hit that and then say create a syllabus, and it will now create it in another document. But what I'm using here is deep research, right? So it used to have a little globe for search. So if I do deep research, it will take longer. But if I give it a complicated task, like prepare a briefing document for me, so let me see if I can get it to do that. I have for position of, let's see, for a new comp sci professor at your university. Right, so I'm going to see if it will do that. So I'm going to let you try. So again, what you should be doing at this moment is get it to do, search for something. So again, this is why. So I suggest, start with something that you know about, right? Like if you know what you've posted or you know something. So again, I've put in your university, so I'll be able to test. But if you have the search on, again, you can always ask it to double check. You can say, so that's fine. I want you to double check. Show me the links that you used. And again, if you have a system prompt like I have, then it's already doing all of that. So it's asking me, so here's it's telling me what it's going to do, right? It's going to go to your university, research the history, mission, strategy of the university, analyze the results, and so I'm going to ask it to start research. Aha. Okay, did I get the right one? Hang on. I already said yes, so okay. So again, so Joseph's giving me exact right. So it's like I didn't know that. So that there are more than one university. So the more of that I do, the better. But it's right. It's looking at your university. Now could I have made this better if I'd given it the job description? That would have been better, right? If I'd said, okay, here is the job description. But you can see where it's searching, right? It's telling me on the screen, right? It's telling me what it's looking at, right? So lots of these are your website. Right? And so it's looking at mission, vision, research areas, right? So it's doing that research, and it's showing me what it's looking at, right? So it's not just making it up; it's actually doing the research. So one of the advantages of hitting the buttons or using ChatGPT, right? ChatGPT will figure out which of these it wants to do automatically, which has got pros and cons, right? Is that it will. Here we go. So next step. So it's telling me what it's doing. It's gathered information on computer science department focus, department's vision, right? It's probably taken that from your website. Initial details on the professor's role, healthy work-life balance, collaborative support and community. I hope that's all true. Comprehensive university review, clear expectations and benefits, right? And so then I could say to it, oh, I want a briefing document for my interview. Here are some things I need to mention. But you can see, right, it's taking some time. It's searching for information. It's thinking. It's going to find things, right? So I hope you're trying something. Right. Again, one of the, try looking for, and part of why, again, the experience is valuable is that you realize, I'm giving you general advice. So if I say, what are the latest trends in prostate cancer research? What are the latest trends in whatever? But I don't tell it which journals to look at. It's like, oh, I should have told it that's the right, focus on these journals, right? So that kind of experience, right, it's really discipline specific. And again, your students are going to need to know this. But understanding, oh, I want you to focus on these journals, or oh, just read the newsletters from the various societies. That will be enough for this, right? You have to give it, because look at how long it takes, right? It's really doing a comprehensive list. While it's thinking, I'll give you one more. And again, I'll tell you when I move on, so you can. So here's another one that you could do. Suppose you're having a search for new professors, right? And so normally, right, we call it a search, but what we normally do is place an ad and then wait, right? Well, you don't want to wait, you want to search. So here is a prompt that I could do, right? I want to search for candidates for an assistant professor at King Fahd University for the computer science department. So I want you to go out and find recent PhDs from top 50 worldwide universities, check CVs to make sure they've actually finished their PhD, and then make a list of candidates, find the email for every candidate, and then create a personalized invitation to apply that I can send as an email. And then I can either say, but before you do it, I want to look at the list, right? That's what I would do. I would check it. I would say, create me a list of candidates. Right, create me a list of candidates with their email addresses, and then create a personalized email invitation to apply for this job for each of them that I can then send myself, or I could have them do it, and I'll show you how to have the AI do it itself. Look especially for people who have some experience in the Middle East, who speak Arabic, who work in this area. All right, so I'm going to go back to, it's thinking it's doing my job. So clear expectations. Let's see. It's still thinking. So again, this is longer, but notice what I've done, right? Because this is a complicated search, I needed to give it more instructions. I don't want to be vague and then have to come back and say, now do this. I mean, you can't do that, but I find if you're doing a more complicated search, so this is called reasoning or deep research. I think Grok calls it deep thinking. Let me see if Grok has changed its name here for what it calls it. So Grok now has expert and heavy, right? And super Grok, right? And their custom instructions, right? So notice those. So these buttons tend to matter, right? Now Grok is a really powerful tool. It also has spicy mode. But notice that when I'm in Grok here, right, this button, right, so it'll pick quick responses using Grok 3. So if I just want something quick, I don't need to use a lot of energy. I want it to be fast. Great. But if I want it to think harder, I can use Grok 4. And if I wanted to do what Gemini is now doing for me on the other platform is really dig in, then I go heavy. So it depends on the kind of thing that I'm having it do. Uh, so this is the moment to say something about ChatGPT 5. So you will notice on ChatGPT now that it doesn't have any of those buttons. Because what happened was that, right, some of you are going, I'm so confused, right? Because you're right. If I'm using Claude, right, there are options. I've got to think about which model do I want, which button if I'm using Grok, right? So you see over here on Claude, right, there are different models. I have to pay for some. There are more models, right? Some of these models are better at coding. Some of these models are, et cetera, right? So I have to know which model to use for my prompt. If I'm doing the kind of thing I'm asking Gemini to do now, right, which is prepare a briefing document, search all the websites, right, I want it to do more work. There are also some buttons over here. There are tools. Notice this, I'm in Claude. I have to turn this web search button on if I want it to do that. It'll hallucinate a lot more without it, right? So in fact, I can, if I go back to this, it's finished my briefing document, and right? So, but in ChatGPT, there are fewer buttons because now a part of what ChatGPT 5 did last week, Friday, was it now picks the model that's right for you based upon what you've written. So on the one hand, if you're a novice, if you use the free version, this is going to give you access to much bigger, better models. On the other hand, if you know that you want code and you want a certain model, this might be a pain. So, right, this is an interesting new experiment. It's just happened. But ChatGPT 5 is trying to do what Apple did and just make it easier for the average person to do something by just saying do it. And right, you notice there's a dictate button. There's also voice mode. So let me go back to here. So this is now the briefing document for my interview with you in the computer science department. There's an executive summary. That's fine. Global your vision. That's I probably could have found this. That's not that interesting. What I want to know. Let's see. Okay, there's there's your history of your institution. There's something about this. And is this a real initiative? Did it make this up? I don't know. Do you have an AI plus X initiative in the computer science department? Global standing. That's good. Information about the department. This is all good. You'll notice it's very verbose. Specializations, it's given me the undergraduate programs, all things I should have gotten from your website. Again, I don't know if it's right, but you would. But breadth and depth for the PhD program, research landscape, right? So this is all kind of general background. I noticed that I didn't give it my CV and I didn't give it the job description. So that's why it's a little vague, right? It's your research focus. But it does have, right, here's a key research areas. Some illustrative publications. Are these things that you people have done? I don't know. Right, it's not my. I can share this. I will actually put this in the chat in a minute. The role, expectations, core duties. Right, so I would probably now say, okay, I need a summary. What are 3 questions? So let me do that. Let me first. So I could do I could quiz myself, right? Notice what I can do here. I can do a quiz. I could create a web page. I could create an infographic, right? So it's giving me options. I could now take this report and turn it into a quiz or a podcast if I wanted that. There's also a table of contents, which I need. Oh, hang on. I didn't want to do that. Go back to, research for, I gotta go. Oh, no, that's something else. I didn't want that. I want to close that. Okay, I lost it. I did something dumb. Why did you do that? You're not. Ugh. Okay. I did something wrong. Sorry. Okay. I will find it and put it in the chat. Yeah, I thought I was in Gemini, and I'm surprised it's not showing up as. Well, maybe the deep research is someplace else. Those are recent. Where's my deep research? Oh, there it is. There it is. Okay, I had to find it. Okay, so I want to close this. So there's the plan. So what I want to do is I want to share this. I want to share this conversation. So I'm going to put this here. So those of you who want to see that. So what I can do now is I can say, okay, I want to give me 3 likely questions I will be asked in the interview. Now, again, I haven't given it the job. I don't actually need the deep search still turned on anymore. So notice I turned off, right? Why did I turn off deep research? Because I didn't want it to take 20 minutes to do this, right? I wanted to just say, okay, so you've already done the briefing document, and I want to know, here are some likely questions, right? How would you integrate AI into your curriculum? Tell us about your experience supervising students. How would you prepare them for publishing in top-tier institutions? Talking points, right? So I don't know, so computer science people, so would these highlight mentorship skills, emphasize a hands-on project, questions about the fit and the vision for the university, why are you interested in our universities, right? That's of course, right? So this is, I've done lots of interviews, so I think those are pretty good questions. But if I was a PhD student who just graduated, this might be useful. And again, I can make this much better by giving it more specifics like my CV, your job posting, etc. All right, so hopefully everybody has done some sort of search for ideas or a deeper research. Let me give you a couple of other ideas. One is I could go to our web pages as if you were a potential student and try to find out how to major in computer science. And then go to our competitors and try the same thing, and then do an analysis of how our website, the ease of use of our website compares to the ease of use of our competitors. How could I make my website more appealing for 18-year-old computer science students to pick me rather than, Carnegie Mellon in Doha, some other university, right? Or some other regional university. So, right, that's another deep research thing it could do, right? So part of the trick here is, right, thinking about, what are other things it could do, right? Do a risk analysis of our website, et cetera. And of course, the one that's probably coming up that's less relevant, maybe immediately, is shopping, right? So shopping is going to change because the website is currently designed for humans, and so it has lots of pictures and it has, right, not too much text. But so my wife was looking for a new vacuum cleaner, and she got one that didn't have quite enough juice to do our whole house. So I said, well, let's, and she said she looked at reviews, and I said, sure, but AI will look at more reviews. So look at this prompt, right? Search for reviews of the best vacuum cleaners that can handle, right, lots of pet hair. You can see our pets there. It's my back garden. They're lightweight. If it's uncorded, because she wanted electric uncorded with batteries, it needs to come with 2 batteries that have enough power to do with a house of, right, that's the size of our, now you know the size of my house, only how much we wanted to spend. It would be great if we could reuse our old attachments. But notice that if I'm looking for something specific, right, I was looking for a raincoat because I'm going to go to the Arctic Circle when I visit Norway. And so, right, but the more I tell it about what I want, it can read all of the reviews. But if you look at my prompt, you'll see I forgot something. I forgot to say it needs to be available today, right? 2025 May. I need to purchase it in 2025 May, because its first recommendation was for a vacuum cleaner that's no longer made. Right? So it's really literal, and that can be very frustrating. Oh, so this is another interview here. So this is on my deep research page. This is my template. So if I'm doing research, um, I had this template because this allows me to think about all the things I might want to ask for. And so again, this is on my website, but I will put the prompt here. All right. Yes, and I'm just making sure everybody is like up to speed on the AI before, so I apologize, Bilal. I'm taking a little too long on making sure everybody is aware of what we can actually do. Because I do think the first thing you have to have is some ability to use the tools and know that you can do these sorts of things. And so, but I will now turn to how we use these things. Are there any other questions about sort of these basic functionalities, how to do deep research, right? Notice in my prompt here, right, I've asked it, look for bias, right? Look for Western political gender bias, whatever, make sure you're global, look in other languages. And so I did mention this on Monday, but there are also agents. So if I wanted to create a game, and so I did give you the wrong link, but notice that if I'm doing research, if I'm using Manus or GenSpark, right, which are agents, I can not only have it do the research for me, I can have it download all the PDFs and organize them. And so I had it do that for the recent research in AI. The first thing it finds is the Journal of Theoretical Applied Information Technology in Indonesia. Not a place I would have looked. I can also use agents to create games, which I can use in my teaching, and I will put the link here because I do have this now. So I did this both. Let me show you, actually. I did this both. So there's the prompt I showed you, right? Just create an interactive game. So this is a game that it has a quiz that's in it too, so you can now take it. It also toggles to English and Arabic up at the upper right-hand corner. And this is the version that ChatGPT 5 did. So I think that ChatGPT 5 did not do as well, right? So ChatGPT 5 produces a single page that does this. Right? It has that information. But this to me looks pretty good. So you can play with this. You can play it in English or Arabic. You can use the simulator. You can go on missions. You can take the quiz. What I could also do, of course, is turn this into an assignment, right? I could have students now complete this, and then I could add to my instructions. I want you to download a grade based upon what the students have done. So the best Gen AI to make for reviewing and analysis of research. Okay, I need another 5 minutes before I get to this question, right? So you could either use my prompt, use any of the big three, and use the prompt that I said. Check your sources, look at academic resources, etc. Or you could use an API. So this is consensus. So if you go to my website under API tools, you will see lists of tools. So an API, it stands for Application Program Interface. All right. And so it's like an app on your phone, right? An app on your phone uses the internet. But if I want to know when do I leave for the airport for my flight, right? I use an app. I don't go to Google. I just open my airline app, and then it tells me what the traffic is and how far I am from the airport. So it gives me less of the internet. So this is consensus. So consensus, when I ask it a question, it only looks at the database of Semantic Scholar, which is the 250 million published academic papers, which means it doesn't hallucinate because it just checks what it does against those academic papers. So I've asked it a question here. And the question, so the question here I asked it was, do polls predict elections? But notice that it then gives me an answer. It says that found 10 papers, and then it lists the papers, right? There are the 10 papers, right? It gives me what kind of, right, where there's the journal, there's the citation, here's the observational study, various kinds of things, American political research. It also has filters, right? I can look last 2 years, last 5 years. I can look at journal rank, right? I can look at what kind of methodology. I can limit the methodology, the study design. I only want literature reviews. I want case reports. So the point is that I could do this all by writing a prompt. I don't need consensus. I can use ChatGPT and I can just type in literature review, last 2 years, academic journals. I can type all that in. But sometimes it's easier to just use an app. So another one of these that I actually like better is Elicit, which is, again, it uses ChatGPT, right? So ChatGPT is the engine for these, but it has instructions that I didn't write right? It gives me a summary answer, and then it gives me the right methodology. It gives me the lists of papers. It has all those tools, filters, etc. A third one of these is Stanford's STORM, short for brainstorm. So I've asked it the same question because, again, I want to compare. It also gives me citations. It does a little bit more than just academic research, which I sometimes like. But what I like about STORM is that it allows me to change the methodology by discipline, right? I can say answer like a political scientist, answer like a sociologist, answer like an engineer versus a mathematician or something, right? And so then it changes how it answers. So for students, what I would do is say, so let's ask a question, right? Think about a research question in your discipline. So for students, the assignment is, okay, I want you to ask a question of STORM, and then I want you to change the discipline, and then I want you to analyze how do computer scientists and engineers think differently about the same problem. Right, so that's a way that I could have them use this. But these are APIs. Another one that's common for science is Future House, which has a precedent search called OWL that you see on the screen. So if I want to know, like, let's say I'm doing a PhD and I want to know, has anybody ever done this research or research like this, right? Well, this would be the tool that I would use, right? Has anybody else done research like this? Are there any other dissertations on this topic that use this methodology? And this one is specifically designed for science. So on my website, I list 100 of these by discipline, by type. But the point is there are lots of, so these are tools that aren't there, they aren't a different frontier model. They are tools that use other models. Does that make sense? All right, I want to make sure that I get to. Okay, so Yasmin, you asking me how to build Superflow heroes? I think so. So the way to do this, so literally all I did to make a game like that. Okay, so I went to GenSpark. So GenSpark is an agent, but you could do it in ChatGPT. I just didn't think that was as good. But I go to GenSpark, which is an agent. Oh, I put in too many P's. Sorry. There it is. So GenSpark is my favorite agent. I then get past the promotional stuff. I don't want that. Why are you giving me that? How do I close that? No, I don't want to listen to that. Ugh. There we are. Okay. And then I take my prompt and I put, type in, right? There it is. There's my prompt, right? And so I put in my prompt and it created a game. And it gave me a link. Now, in order to deploy it to you, I had to copy it into GitHub, but I just had to ask it to create a game, right? I ask it to do that. Claude will do this too. Claude is pretty good at this, right? So there, if I go to the top, there it is. So there's my prompt. That's all I have to do. You could try it in ChatGPT 5. Again, you can do this for coding, etc. Okay, I want to, so there are lots of those tools on my website. So I want to make sure we get to assignments and to students and other kinds of things. So there's, as you can tell, right, there is a lot of sort of just basic understanding. So I want to try to honor the topic, but also, answer questions. So you've asked, what's the best way to get a list of the best model to use? So yeah, so you could, I mean, ChatGPT is going to recommend itself for most things, right? That is the problem. So I think the best way is to try similar tasks in different models, right? So I could take this prompt and try it in two different models and see what happens. Um, you will get a better user, but again, AI is a weird technology. It's weird. All right, so let me give you another usage of this. So one of the things that AI can do is to help us communicate and think about how our students understand things. So one thing I would do is I would ask an AI one of these questions, right? Um, I would say to one of the models, okay, so I would take your rules of academic integrity, right? What is cheating? You know, so take it from your syllabus, right? Take your syllabus and take your rules for cheating academic integrity, and I would copy and paste them into any of these models. But I would say then, respond as if you were an 18-year-old student at my university, right? Or a 20-year-old student or whatever it is. And is there anything that's unclear about my academic integrity policy? So in other words, the two things you have to do. One is you have to give it your academic integrity policy, right? But the other is you have to tell it that I want you to respond not like a professor, but like a student. And is there anything that's unclear, right? Is there something that, you know, what would a student know that using AI for code is cheating given what I've said in my syllabus? Is this as clear as it could be, right? So I wish I could say what's the best. So I think, well, okay, I think GenSpark is the best for creating little apps. But, you know, ChatGPT 5 is new. I think it's a little bit, you know, for this particular job, it didn't do as well. When I've given it, you know, 15 more tests, I may know better. But I thought that GenSpark was better. I think Manus is also better at doing things that I actually want to deploy. Pause, because I do think that if I just want the code, you know, if you know how to take the code and put it into GitHub and do all that stuff, then Claude is probably the best. See, because I'm not a computer programmer, so I can't make it any better, right? But Claude or GitHub, right? So it depends on what your expertise is at doing this. If you're a computer scientist, the answer is different than if you're an engineer, I think, or if you're, yeah. I wish I could be less vague. All right, so I want you to try this about academic integrity, right? So is my policy clear? But again, if you just say, is my policy clear, it'll respond like an AI. I want you to respond like an 18-year-old student at this university. You know, you're a 20-year-old computer science major at King Fahd. How do you think? Right? Or ask it this: how could I make my statement on academic integrity clearer? Right? And of course, you don't have to do it just about academic integrity. You could give it an assignment. You could say, is my assignment clear? Or you could say this: is my assignment? Are there ways to make my assignment more engaging and motivating to 18-year-old students at King Fahd University majoring in X? Right. So try having it respond like one of your students. Yeah, ask it to make it better, clearer, more engaging. You know, again, think, and again, you might try several of those. You know, because again, if you think about it, cheating, right? Students cheat in part because they don't understand why this is important, right? When you go to the gym to do push-ups, you don't cheat. You might get tired, but you don't try to cheat because you know that if you don't do the push-ups, you don't get the benefit. But students don't always recognize the benefit because it's more opaque in academic work. So if I can help students understand why this is important, how it will benefit me as a major in this. I often say, start with why, right? Sell the cookie, not the recipe. So one of the ways to help students cheat less is to make sure that the that the motivation for why the assignment is going to be useful is at the top. It's the very first thing they see. Now, I could also make so this what you're as you're talking to your AI, don't forget you might have to tell it to be an expert in pedagogy too, right? So if I'm asking it to make my assignment clear and motivating to students, right? Use, what are the things that experts in pedagogy do? And of
We'll
course
break
you
for
could,
5 minutes here so that if anyone would like
great.
to grab a cup of tea or tea or whatever.
Let's do that. I'm sorry. Let's take a 5 minute break.
Yeah.
And I'll let you try this and work on that. And if there are questions, I'll answer questions while you're doing that.
I have a question, if you
Okay,
don't mind. Thank
please.
you very much. Today's session is an eye opener for me. I am quite inspired by what you did just to explore the number of these ones. I was quite I didn't want to try AI at all because I didn't like the whole concept at all. But this is quite interesting. So, um, is there no the possibility that when we use AI to design our syllabus or syllabi, that the students could equally use AI to get solutions to the problems we give them?
Yes. So we're going to talk about that next. So on the one hand, right, you should try your assignments in AI and see if AI can do them. And the answer is probably yes. So my solution to the cheating problem is less about trying to catch them cheating and more about how can I help them understand why doing these push-ups themselves will be beneficial. But it's also about giving them things to do that AI can't do, which is hard, as you can now imagine. So that's what we're going to do next.
Thank you. Since no one is speaking yet, I can ask a second question if you don't mind.
Of course, please, please.
Yes, yes. So I just have a personal fear that students get very comfortable and they would do anything to skip the hard work because of what you just said, the lack of awareness of the very relevance of what they're doing. So, is there no real danger that the student may just outsource their brain to AI and probably just learn prompting rather than just the course itself? I think it solves the problem from a student perspective. I learned prompting, prompt engineering, and I'm a master of all the courses.
Yeah, so absolutely there is a fear. This is in fact, I think, our big challenge. So our big challenge is in fact that students could outsource all of the thinking, and that's a problem that we really do have to be aware of. And so I want to talk about both why that's a problem, but also how we don't get caught in this. I have to just prevent it. I have to try to detect it, right? I think the better solution is to help students understand why they need to do the work and what the benefit is, because that really does reduce cheating. And the other reason is because it actually is impossible to detect student cheating regularly. Can't there's no reliable way to always get it right.
This is very interesting response from you. But just that I feel myself at a personal level, I miss not just as a person, but the entire region itself. It's maybe very difficult to convince the student that learning is the only way to succeed. It's just going to be difficult. This is a practical issue that we have to deal with.
It is, but my advice to you is A, to ask students what they want to do, right? So do a pre-course survey. So what is it you want to do when you graduate, right? And so for every student, I now have, I want to do this, I want to do this. Also, I ask students, what motivates you to do your best work? When do you do your best work? Right? And so if I have a spreadsheet, so you may hate this answer, but I can then customize all of their assignments. And so what I do is I upload the spreadsheet. I also ask students for an a code that I can use, so tell me how you want me to an avatar or a code, you're Batman 26 or something. So it's not, so their name is not associated with it. And then I say, here is my assignment. I'd like you to customize the assignment for every student based upon their interests to make it more motivating to each individual student, right? Because a student who wants to be a petroleum engineer or worse, wants to be a dentist, right? They look at your math problems and they think different things. And so if I have AI then customize the problems so that they're right in my field or they're more real world situations, the students are more likely to do them.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Okay, I'll give you another 30 seconds while I'm looking at.
I just had a quick question,
Please.
and it's probably a long answer, but can keep it short. You mentioned something about AI impacting creativity or becoming more creative. Could you kind of discuss that just a little bit?
Give me a few minutes, and because I'm going to get to creativity when I get to assignments. But
Okay,
I'll give you the short answer then, and then I'll try to save us a little time. Okay, so so I will try to get to grading too. Yeah, I have an 8-hour version of this workshop, so a lot of these questions are good questions. So let me talk about cheating and assignments, and then try to get to grading before we run out of time. So welcome back. I was answering some questions. So the problem is of course, that AI can often do answers. And so our strategy one is to say, well, this is cheating. And so what do we do? Well, if it's cheating, then we either can go back to proctoring, oral exams, write blue books, right? None of these things are much fun, right? But they are a strategy. They're also AI detectors. The problem is their accuracy varies. They are better than you. You should know that. But all the techniques I've given you so far today will allow you to beat detectors, right? That if I ask it to make it better, make it better, make it better, after 3 or 4 rounds of that, make it sound like a college student, now the AI detector is less accurate, right? So that's a problem. So Turnitin says that, and that's one of the best detectors, and they really do vary. So it's not perfect. So they said they reviewed 200 million papers in the first year. They flagged 22 million of them for having some AI contact. That's 20%. That doesn't seem like a lot, right? Maybe that's okay. But that means this is, worldwide 880,000 false positives. So that means almost 1 million students were accused of cheating when they weren't. Right? So that's collateral damage. So you've got to decide, is that acceptable, right? What happens if I accuse a student of cheating? And of course, it's not plagiarism. At least in the US, it's not plagiarism, because the definition of plagiarism is copying from another person, and AI is not a person. So it's misuse, it's cheating, but it's not plagiarism. And you can't prove it because AI always produces a different answer. But the other thing is that students can buy an AI humanizer that will beat your detector. And often it's the same company, right? The company that will say, well, here's what Turnitin will predict. And so we will humanize it so it doesn't predict. And so for $9.99 a month, right? So that's another problem, is that you have these humanizers. So if you Google how to beat AI detector and put in your detector, you'll see there's a lot of ways to do it. So I don't think this is totally reliable. I think you should be very careful about detectors. But the second strategy recognizes that what we call cheating, business calls progress. Now, of course, we have different aims than business. We want students to learn things because we want them to be experts, but business often cares about the product. So that means we can't only care about the product. We have to care about the thinking process. But it also means I don't think we can just say, okay, you can't use AI. This is, of course, an AI image on the screen. So if AI is not good enough, I have to articulate to students what better looks like. So my suggestion is that you take your rubrics. So this is an old rubric, and you can see on my rubric that says AI level. Well, that used to be a C, right? The essay is this, the code was this, you've done this to this standard. And I used to give it a C for average. But AI is changing average. if a student can only do work as good as AI, they won't get a job. So students now have to be able to graduate doing better work than AI. So I've made my rubrics harder, right? I've raised the standard, but I'm also allowing students to use AI to get to that standard, right? In the same way that I use a spell checker, right? I used to grade spelling and grammar. I don't anymore because they use a spell checker, right? So how do I raise standards? Another way to ask this question is, how do I reconnect writing and thinking? Because AI produces writing without thinking, right? So I can look at this and it looks like thinking, but there really wasn't thinking. So I have some ideas for some kinds of things that I can have students do. So for a writing assignment, I might say, well, here's the assignment, or maybe it's a coding assignment, and I say, or a project. So what are the stages? So, well, I've got to think, I've got to plan, I've got to do an outline, I've got to do a draft, then there's some editing, I get some feedback, right? So I have students outline, and we talk about this in class, what are the various stages? Then I say, okay, could AI help you for some of the stages? Could it help you with feedback? Could it help you with drafting? It could, but it might change your learning, and I talk about this openly. So let's explore how this works. So I say, so I want you to write a paragraph right now about how you might complete this assignment, or write an opening paragraph for your thesis. And they write for 5 minutes. Great. Now I want you to do this with AI. I want you to put into the AI, and I'm going to give you a specific prompt like I gave you today. I would like you now to tell the AI what you're passionate about. What do you care, right back to Ibrahim's question, right? What do you care about? What are you most passionate about? And then say, how could I write an essay, or how could I do this project in a way that overlaps with my passion? And ask the AI to give you some ideas for how you could overlap, right? This is how it's creative. It will put things together in interesting ways. And then I say, so now tell it, give me 5 variations on that. Give me 10 variations on that. Give me another way that I could prepare to be this position. This is the job I want. How could I use this assignment to help me prepare to do that job? And then they get ideas. I say, so now I want you to write another opening paragraph based upon the ideas that you got. And they write. I say, great. That 5 minutes go by. Now I say, now what I want you to do is I want you to take the best paragraph that you have, and I want you to put it into AI, and I want you to ask these questions. I want you to say, give me 5 ways to make this paragraph better. Give me, what are the things that somebody who disagrees with this might argue? What is the counter argument to this? I take them through a series of feedback questions where I ask them, what would somebody from another political party, another discipline, think of this? What would someone who has this who really wants to maximize profit, how might they change this idea? Right? I give them a series of prompts. I say, get some feedback. Now I say, now I want you to rewrite one of your paragraphs using that feedback. And I have them do this all in class. They have 3 paragraphs now. Now I say, now I want you to just ask the AI to write you a paragraph, right? I want you to just have it, right? Just put the assignment into AI and have it do it and see what happens, right? So now they have 4 paragraphs, right? And so I say, which of these is the best paragraph? And very few students will say the one that AI wrote is the best paragraph. They will say, well, the one that the human AI that we both worked on it is the best paragraph. But then even if they say, well, the AI wrote the best paragraph, I then say, where did you learn the most? Of course, you learned nothing when AI wrote the paragraph. I say, so how would this be useful for you to have this, right, if you didn't learn anything? And so we reflect on where did AI help or hurt the learning. The metaphor that I often use is the superhero, because our students, right? I said, do you want to be the hero or the sidekick? I said, and when I think a student has cheated, I often don't say, oh, I think you cheated. I think you used AI. I say, you know what? I don't think you're the hero of this essay, of this project. I think maybe I don't hear enough of your voice. I think maybe AI is too much of a hero here because I allow them to use AI, right? But I want AI to be the sidekick, not the hero. And so students seem to respond to that and understand that metaphor because, again, I say, if you're the sidekick, you're not going to get hired. Because right back to Ibrahim's question, I want you to be hired. I want you to get a job, and you're only going to get a job if you're the hero, right? You can use AI to do better work, but you need to be able to make the work better, right? So here's another assignment. This is specifically for writing. I have them, you could do this for a project, I guess. You could say, okay, I want you to write a paper about this, write a lab report, do something. But first I want you to do an outline. And then I want you to write the paper. And then I have them bring the paper back to class, and I say, before you turn it in, give it to AI and have it do a reverse outline. What did I say in every paragraph? Give me a one-sentence summary of everything I said, right? How could I be more persuasive? Again, I take them through a series of steps, and then I say, how many of you think you could make your work better? How many of you think you could make your code better? Every hand goes, I say, great, now the real work starts. So even if they cheated and AI wrote the code or AI did the essay, I can now say, make it better, right? And because AI gave you hints as to how to make it better, how could you now do that? Let me skip persuasion. So here's a journaling, right? We often say to students, I want you to journal about what you're learning. I want you to have metacognition, think about what you're learning. So we used to have them do this in a journal. Well, I could have them do it with a bot. So look at the prompt here. This is on my website for prompts for learning. You are a kind, insightful assistant, et cetera, guide students to reflect deeply on their own insights. So it will ask the student, reflect on something you learned. It'll do that. And then it considers the student's responses. And then it asks a follow-up. Tell me more about this. How did you think about that? Why do you think you learned that? And then I could say, make sure students write 500 words in every session, every day. And then I have a student do this for 2 weeks. So instead of writing, they're writing, right? Prompting is writing. But they're writing with a bot who interrogates them about their learning and says, tell me more about this. How would you apply this theory in this other class? And so the students are having to reflect on their learning and they're having to write, but they're doing it by typing. And then after 2 weeks, I can either have them do a PDF and I can grade it, or I could have the bot grade it and say, if a student has written 500 words a day and they have shown insight to here's the rubric, then put this grade in the grade book. And you will have this capability in your learning management system probably by this fall. Canvas and Blackboard have already rolled this out. So you can do these assignments and have it all internal and have it all automatically graded. Here's a diagnostic tutoring bot, right? So I say, before you turn it in, I want you to use this prompt, right? So what are your hidden assumptions about this work? Is there a conventional wisdom I want to challenge, et cetera, right? So I have the students get feedback. So this happens at the end. So I say, so you have to do the work yourself, because if you can't do any work, you can't get hired. But then get feedback about it to make it better. And even if the students are cheating, that this can work. So this is a critical thinking bot that I am going to, let's see. So there are 2 ways to access this. So one is I am going to, on my website, I have prompts for learning, and you can go there, and there is a very long prompt, which I'll try to put in the chat. But it's also under the prompts for learning. But if I give you this, oh no, I exceeded the limit. So okay, so it won't. That's too long. Let's try this. Okay, so there's the first half, and then I'll put the second half. That's still too long. So I've put it in the chat, so you're going to have to either put that together or go to my website. Oh, and it's still too long. Okay. There it is. Okay. So that's a pretty long prompt, right? So the other way to access this is I'm going to give you a bot, but you have to sign in to use it this way. No, don't do that. Okay, why is it? Ugh. Sorry, let's go back to. Okay, so I guess the best way to do it is to go here. I'll put this in the chat. And then copy and paste the prompt there, or you can take it from the chat window. And there's also a link there that you can click. So you'll see, it says try it here. So if you click on try it here, you do have to sign in. You can sign in with Google. But this is the same bot. So what I'd like you to do is to try that bot. And what you'll see is that it asks you, and I will do it on the screen so you can see that. All right, so I'm going to try it in, let's try it in Finar, new chat. Great, so I think I could do this in Arabic in Finar. I left it in English because I started in English, but I think I can probably switch if I needed to. But there is, right, I've put in the prompt. You can see the prompt there. And then it asks me, right, what I want to argue. So again, I want to, whatever. So this is going to test me. So, put in something, I want to argue, to mine for copper in Saudi Arabia. I don't know. Hang on, it's not typing. I'm in the wrong box. Sorry. I just made that up. You should be trying this in your own discipline. Right, and so I've asked it something sort of outside the parameters, but it's right. It's given me some feedback, right, about geological, right, economic, right. It's thought about how do I think better about the question that I asked. So that's what I want you to try. Did that make sense? Is it working? So how could I use this as an assignment and to stop cheating, right? So on the one hand, I could just use this as a way to help students make their work better. I say, so look, everything you give me should have lots of critical thinking because I've just given you a bot, right? And so before any project that you do for me, you should now take it to the bot, say, here's how could I make this better, right? It's gonna help you make it better. How do I think through this? But what I could also do is I can save this chat as a PDF and you could grade it and you could say, well, you didn't ask really good questions, right? So the point is I'm having students say, I'm going to ask you to do work that's hard, that AI cannot do on its own. But you couldn't do it on your own either. Now it's true that what I've just done, I could have another bot. I could say I want another bot. I could feed this into another bot and have the bots talk to each other. And there are students who are hardcore cheaters who will do that. But this is interesting. This is fun. I'm now. Oh, I hadn't thought about that. Right. What I'm doing is going to be more interesting and more fun. I'm less likely to cheat. There is nothing that's totally foolproof, right? Especially now that we have AI. But knowing that they want to get a job is going to help them, right? That if all you do is cheat, you won't be able to do that forever. And so let me give you one other thing, and then I'll come back and answer some more questions. So I was asked about creativity, and that's going to relate right to how I do this with creating assignments. So, right, with creativity, right, sometimes AI hallucinates, and that's a problem. But other times, right, creative people hallucinate. That's what we do for a living, right? So I had to think of this dumb prompt, right? I want Genghis Khan, but I want his face to be a strawberry. I want some cats with wings flying outside a space station orbiting the Earth. And I want Queen Victoria, who's been merged with a rabbit, right? This is nuts, right? So AI can be more creative because it creates lots and lots of ideas, right? And it hallucinates, it makes stuff up. And so it can be an idea generator in a way that's very useful. So here is an old assignment that I've now gotten better with AI. So my old assignment was, and this is Trader Joe's is a crazy shopping store in America, but you have shopping, so right. I want 50 ideas for new products. So my old assignment used to be, I want 50 ideas for new products, but AI can do that assignment. So instead of saying, give me 50 ideas for new products, I say, use an AI to come up with 50 ideas for new products. You see 5 on the screen. And then what I want you to do is, I want you to iterate and improve those ideas by interacting with the AI. So, okay, spicy mango jerky. Well, what if it was not so spicy? What if it was peach? What was it, right? How do I iterate? How do I improve? But now what I want you to do is I want you to cost all of those. I want you to price them. How much is it going to cost, right? What's the supply chain going to be? How big a package should it be? Well, could I product test? Of course, I can use an AI. So, for example, you are a 35-year-old mom in Saudi Arabia. Will you pay this amount for 14 ounces of this product? You are right. You are a cell phone user in this country. You use this much data a month. I want to increase my pricing plan by this much. What is your response going to be? I can do a focus group by having AI be I'm not a 13-year-old who uses 4 gigabytes a day. Whatever. Right? I can have you be the audience. I can say, well, what about the supply chain? What about the margin? How could I make these ideas better? What's the right packaging? What's the right size? So now my assignment is a lot harder than it used to be, right? You would have taken a whole semester to do this before, and now it's a week assignment. I now want you to use AI. I want you to propose 10 new products, not 50, 10, but I want all 10 of them to have been fully checked, costed, market tests, supply chain, ROI, packaging, all of those things you could do with AI, and so the standard is much higher. Does that make sense? I've taken an old assignment and I've now raised the standard by using AI to do things that I couldn't do. And the student has to work with AI. And let me give you a few more, right? So how do I improve this? So I'm constantly giving students these sorts of prompts, right? Help me do this. Help me think about this code differently. Could I make this code more secure, right? So one thing I could do is say, have the AI write the code. And then I have you take the code and you put it into a Word document. And now the assignment is turn on track changes and make it better, right? And every time you make the code better or make the project specs better, put in the commentary, why is it better? Articulate to me your meta thinking. How is this? Why is it better? Why is it this more secure? Is it simple? Is it more elegant? What is it that you've done to make your code, the AI code, better? And when I do this, sometimes I will just give them the AI generated code. Sometimes I'll give them the prompt. Perhaps, right? What might we be missing? What other features might be missing? That's a great prompt to make this tool better, right? Here's another prompt that I give them. I say, so whatever you've done some work, respond as a panel of radically different thinkers. So let's say they've written an economics paper. I might say, okay, so now I want the AI to respond to your essay as Adam Smith and Milton Friedman and David Rosen, right? 3 different, really radically different economists talk about my ideas. Or you could give them 3 radically different programmers or different companies, right? They get different responses, now make it better. So I'm constantly trying to raise the standards, but I'm also focusing on process. Right? How will you produce work that's good enough for your boss that's better than what AI can do? So a few more examples. This is an art example, which I know you don't teach, but I could say, okay, use the AI to turn an explosion into art. Right? The AI is the tool, but I still have to evaluate, are the colors right? What else do I want to do? I could say make a medieval photograph if I was teaching medieval history, right? Because there aren't any. On the left, I've said, turn yourself into a 12th century, 13th century saint, give yourself iconography. I could have you teach an AI how to paint like a famous painter, how to produce artwork like this, but you can't use the name of the painter or the artist, right? You can't use the century. You can only use style terms. And this is your final exam, so you're going to save a PDF of all of your prompts, so I will see that you didn't cheat, but teach an AI how to produce this type of art or this type of image without using the century or the style or the name? Or how about in science? I could say, make a video of the chemical reaction, right? Rather than just doing problems, show me how the bonds are broken. Show me you really understand what's happening at the molecular level by making a video, which you could do with AI, right? Of how, so the AI is going to need help. You have to make sure it's right? Because AI will get this wrong. If I just say, make this equation into a video, I don't know if it's right or not. Graphic novels, right? AI can help me write that. Students like that more than I do, but there you go. And so here's one that I think that's also an AI literacy question, right? So I want you to take a controversy. In this case, should schools ban smartphones during the day? Then ask 5 different AIs for an evidence-based solution, and then compare the outputs. Right? What does this say about each of the priorities of the companies who made them? How does each model frame the issue? And then the essay that you write is one that will matter to students. How does this complicate your views about AI or LLMs? By the way, this is I know it's small, but you can make it bigger, right? This is the answer to that question. This is how right? So notice when I ask 5 models that question, some of them say no, some of them say yes, right? And then you can say, well, what does it differ? How do the answers tell us about the companies that made the models, right? I might have a follow-up. I might say, how do you now push back against what the model said? This is a history example, so I'm going to skip this one. I could test ideas, right? So on the left, what if I built a stadium on the moon? What would that look like? Right, that may be trivial, but how could I think about this problem? So notice that, right, it's not quite as easy as it sounds, right? If I say I want a dog, a realistic photo, I can get that. But if you're a film student or you're a visual student, right, you say, well, there are visual terms, right? Is it a wide angle shot? Is it late afternoon? Where's the sun? What's the architecture like, right? There are also these sorts of terms, right? Do I want impressionism, film noir, right? So what are the sorts of terms that I can use? And yeah, the slides are under AI resources on my website. The slides are all there. Here's another, right? So as the human, I have to think about, okay, I want to do a disaster movie. It's an Asian disaster movie with UFOs about, a drought, right? And so, right, I can do an image of that. So let me make sure I'm doing that. Okay, that's good. So another thing that's really happened is video. So this is VO3. So this is a pharmaceutical ad. So I could ask students to make a video. So in this case, this is a guy who used to make pharmaceutical ads, and he would charge $500,000. And so in America, we get these on television. And so he's used an AI. This is an AI advertisement.
I tried everything for my depression. Nothing worked.
Every day felt heavy. I felt trapped.
Then I tried Pupramin.
Our prescription helps your body secrete a special pheromone that attracts puppies.
I took the pill before bed, and when I woke up, there he was, the love of my life.
The pill does not target depression directly, but we've found that it's really difficult to be depressed when cute dogs show up at your doorstep.
I used to feel so empty, but now I feel joy and mild concern how a pee stain got on the ceiling. My puppy listens twice as good as my ex-husband and only climbs into the lap of half as many of my friends.
He chewed up my Bible and pooped in my good chair. But I'm happy for the first time in years.
Looks like a rat, barks like a demon. But he saved my life.
I named him Earl. He follows me everywhere and farts in his sleep. Just like my first husband.
Pupramin, for when your therapist says, maybe you should get a dog.
Right. So that's pretty good, right? As an ad, that is.
I tried.
So you can have students do a video project, right? Which they couldn't do before, but now they could use AI to do it. Actually, make me a video of what this would look like. And again, you might say, oh, I want to make me a video of what it would like to go to this mine and to do this. But I can say, no, make me a video of what happens under the earth, right? Make me a video from the point of view of the drill bit, right? I could do something I couldn't do before. Show me what's actually going to happen when this happens and this meets that or whatever. Here's another one: to stress test a business plan, right? So I give them the prompt. So I say, so you have to write a business plan for this. You have to create a project plan. So a project plan is a good example, right? Project plan your engineers. Here's what I'm going to do. So now I want to stress test it. So what I do is I give it this prompt. What might happen over the next 2 years? So I want you to simulate economic, political change. You might have geological changes in there too, right? What surprises, what geologic surprises might we find, and how would that interfere with our plan? So again, notice I could do this I could give them the prompt. I have them talk to the AI. I have them upload their business plan, and then they have to work through some scenarios of what might happen if things aren't what we thought they were going to be. An easy way to do this is just to say respond as a person, right? In this case, Mark Cuban for business, but right, there must be an expert. You could say respond as an expert in drilling and geologic engineering. You have 35 years of experience doing X. Help the student figure out what might be missing in their project and what might go wrong. Work through a 3-year scenario, and I'm going to give you an example of one in a minute. I'd give you that one. Questions. So I want you to think about, could you add an AI element to an assignment that you currently have that could raise standards and make it a little harder for students to cheat, but also help them do better work? Questions about that? If you want to unmute and talk to me, that's okay, or put it in chat, or just if you want to play for a minute. The video was created with VO3. And so you can do that in ChatGPT. I mean, it's not, or actually that's a Google tool. I think Google probably makes better videos at the moment. But so you could do it in Gemini. But so I've got a list of these tools on my website. I'll put the link here. It's under API tools. And so they're listed by things like music, images, grading, which I will get to in a minute, right? So there are tools that, again, API tools use other engines, but they have fine tuning. But yeah, VO3s, and there are a number of really good Chinese tools, right? Kimi has a tool. Other questions about adding an AI element to an assignment? So Majid has asked me a really great question. So what's interesting about the reflection part, if you have a large class, you can now either have students do this in class, but each of them is on their computer reflecting with an AI, or you could have them do it after class, right? You could say, so before the next class, I need you to take my feedback, take this prompt, or take our custom bot, and I want you to reflect on how you could make this assignment better. Right, but that's I think the real beauty is that you can use AI to increase reflection. Right, I can have you talk to an expert in something like the critical thinking bot I gave you earlier. Right, I can that's designed for the front end of the project. Right, before you start this project, what else do I have to think about to make this project better? But then I could do another one at the back end, which is run me through a 3-year simulation to help me think about what else could go wrong. All right. So one of the things, so I think all assignments are now AI assignments. So actually, sorry, the next generation of textbooks are mostly interactive AI, right? So what people are doing is, and I'll actually show you this. I will go to, really what students are doing, and what you should probably just do anyway, is to go to Notebook LM, which is another Google API. So this is Notebook LM, right? So it works like a notebook. So it uses Gemini, right? But what it does is, okay, so let's see. There we are. Here it is, my notebooks. So what you do is you upload the textbook, right? Or in this case, right? So when I'm working on a new Teaching with AI book, I not only uploaded the first edition of the book, but I said, find me all of the other books, all of the other research that has happened in the last 18 months and add that to the database, right? So in fact, if I go to sources, so this is one of my earlier books. So I can say discover or add, right? I can add a source, but I could do discover, right? So I can upload the textbook. So this is Notebook LM. And then I say, oh, I want you to find more about this and then add those files to whatever, right? So I can do that. But I can also, I can chat, I can ask questions, right? So if I have a question, so tell me how to do this, right? I don't have to actually read the textbook. I could say, how do I do this? And so in other words, it's going to customize for me. But what I could also do is explain it to me in a certain way. So for example, this is, let's see if I can do, so this is, I've put in the textbook and
What truly makes feedback effective? Oh, hey there, what's up?
So I have to use my microphone. So hi, can you explain this concept to me? I'm a petroleum engineer. Can you, can you use references that I would understand to help understand this concept?
Oh, absolutely. What a fantastic question, and it's perfect for our deep dive today. We love it when you chime in.
Yes, that's what this is
Right.
all about.
So notice what I've done, right? So I upload the textbook, and students will do this, and so you might as well do it for them, and I'll tell you why in a minute. So I upload the textbook, I upload all the readings, and now a student can say, explain it to me. I don't understand. Explain that to me more. I don't understand that. Do it to me again, right? So, and in fact, the number one use for this is students asking questions about how do I use this? How do I make it? Tell me this. But I could also say things like, I want it using cricket analogies. I want it using football analogies, right? I can ask it for specific types of explanations. So the reason that I would do this instead of letting your students do it is I would create a course bot. Because now what I can do is add instructions that say, don't give students the answer. Make sure you are asking them questions, you are deepening their knowledge. And of course, a lot of the tools, right, like Google has this guided learning, right? They're building this in, right? So because they know that this is a problem. So I think the best way to do this is to actually write your own prompt. And so I have a number of them on my website, but I think the best way to do this is to take your syllabus and all of your materials, and I will, and build a custom bot. So this requires another piece of software or another platform. So you can do this in your LMS, in Canvas or Blackboard. You can do it in Poe. My favorite is Boodlebox because it allows me to see everything that students are doing. And so I have just enough time, I think, to do one of these in Boodlebox. I think I have enough time. So I can, if I can, okay, sign in, give the password. No, don't generate. Why is it? I thought I was signed in. Okay, so let me just 1 second. Maybe I used my Google. That's what I did wrong. There we go. Okay. Sorry. So here's how you do this. So you can do this in ChatGPT. You have to pay for it. You can do it in various in ChatGPT. They're called GPTs. I will show you that. So here I'm in ChatGPT. So over here they're called GPTs on the left. So if I click on GPTs, I can search for GPTs and somebody made, so that's a custom bot. And I can see if somebody else has already done it, or I can build my own, but you have to pay for that. I'm going to do it in Boodle because I like this better. So I'm going to build a bot. So right, I'm in Boodlebox. It has, and so most of them, right, they have a similar function. Claude has them. They all have similar kind of thing. So I give it a name, I give it a description, whatever, and I continue. And then it has on the left, it wants to know, well, what do you want the bot to do? And so I have to say, okay, here are my learning objectives, right? So this is where I would say, I want you to not give students the answer. I want you to deepen their knowledge. I write the prompt. But then under knowledge over here on the left, I then add my syllabus. I add my textbooks. So I could do this in a lot of different places. But what I'm doing is I'm creating a specialized course bot or an assignment bot or a syllabus bot. And then I can tell it what I want it to say to students. And I don't give students the answer. But now I say to students, you have this bot. And so I'm going to show you, go back to this. So most of the work is, of course, writing the prompt, thinking what I want it to do. And I have examples on my website of prompts for this. But I say, okay, I want you to help students reflect. I want you to be a course TA. I want you to be kind to help students understand the material. And then I upload the material. So they tried this at Harvard. And I want you to see the results. So what students mostly did with their course bot, and this is a class with 930 students. These are MBA students at Harvard. So they used it to figure out, well, I don't understand this course. What's this jargon? Explain this to me in another way. 42% used it for practice questions. But the statistic I want you to notice is that most students didn't become power users because they didn't know how to use the bot. So students are using AI, but they're using it poorly, right? They don't know how to use it. So if you're going to build a course bot, which I recommend, I would then show students on the first day of class, here's how you use it. It will help you get unstuck. It will give you practice questions. It already has the syllabus in it. One thing you could do is to say, I want you to take all of the deadlines and put them in my calendar, right? Make me a study guide. I haven't taken calculus. I have taken this. Make me a study guide personalized for me. I want you to explain everything to me in soccer analogies, right? Whatever, I can give it specific information as a student, and I'd show them how to do that, right? But I think making course bots is a really, really useful way to do this. And so on my website, I have more examples of this, of how to do those bots. There it is. There again is Notebook LM. And so on my site under the AI, there is, right, prompts for simulations, games, making custom bots. There's a whole section on custom bots. And of course, there's a new book coming out that will have, there's a whole chapter on custom bots, because that's new. We didn't have that 6 months ago. All right, so I know that's too much. I'm so sorry. But I wanted to give you the array of the kinds of things you could do. And so I saved just a couple of minutes for questions. I'm sorry, there's not more. EMBA programs. So I showed you on Monday, right, that students can just ask it to take your course. So if your course is designed like it is now, a student can just go in and take all the quizzes. So one thing you can do if you teach in an online program like an EMBA, is instead of giving regular exams, right, give exams that are in a bot. So in other words, I write a prompt, I take the exam, and I give it to an AI, and I say, so I want you to, for every student who logs on, I want you to create a new exam, and I want you to customize this, but I want you to interrogate them, right? So instead of taking a midterm, I say, talk to my bot, who will make sure that you understand these three concepts. And when you understand these three concepts, it will give you a grade, and I have to give them, right? So you'd ask me about grading. So the way that you get it to grade is you have to give it a rubric. You say, grade these against this rubric, right? This is an A, this is a B, here are the criteria. You have to give it all of that stuff. Here's a sample, maybe calibrate it, right? Here's what I think is really good. So that's how you do that.
I think we reached the end of the session in terms of time. So I'm not sure if we have time for one or two questions, but it depends on you, Jose, if you would like to have one or two questions from the audience.
Sure.
And that's it. So you can pick anyone from the chat, or if someone has a question, he or she can speak to the mic directly.
Sure. So avatars are Hey Jen. That's the best one for avatars.
Can I go?
Yes, please.
Yes, go ahead.
I already asked too many questions. My question is very direct, but you can choose not to answer if it doesn't work for you. Did you use AI in designing the slides?
So I did not. So this is interesting. So I'm old, as you've probably figured out. And so I have a workflow to do certain kinds of things. So for slides, right, when I do a slide, I'm thinking, oh, what's the most important information? So when AI does slides for me, I have to edit them to make it better. So I don't use AI to make slides because I use slide making as thinking, right? Right. So in fact, that last slide that I showed you, right? There's a lot more information. In fact, I'll probably edit this slide because I thought, well, what's the most important thing that you need to take away, right? And so I thought, so I did use the image as AI, right? I did use an image. I did ask for a frustrated student, right? But then I wanted to think, what do I really want to communicate? So I might ask AI, how do I make it better if I want to communicate this? But yeah, I don't use AI, I use it in very, very specific kinds of ways. Thank you for that.
Thank you very much.
And by the way, if I did, I would have told you.
Okay, I think we should stop here. So thank you very much for everyone. Thank you, Jose, for this excellent, really, and full of tips, I would say, session. I hope the participants will benefit from this and add to their, I would say, teaching toolbox to maybe to use them as tools for improving the teaching as well as the learning. So thank you very much, and uh, see you inshallah in another DAT events in the coming days. Thank you.
Thank you. And if you have me to campus, we'll spend a much longer time doing this. Well, a much longer session.
Yes.
Thank you.